Hello, singers. Here in my yard in Snohomish, Washington, I have two Oregon maple trees, one on either side of my yard. What do these trees have to do with singing? Well, I'm going to tell you. These Oregon maple trees, also known as the big leaf maple, can produce leaves that are a foot wide. They're absolutely remarkable. And while my favorite season in the Pacific Northwest is the fall, my least favorite thing to do is rake leaves. We've all had that experience where we finally get motivated to go out in our yard and rake leaves. We get our rake and we start working, and it isn't long until we get a signal from our hands saying, ouch, something's not right. And we look down and we have pressure marks or hot spots on our hands where we've been gripping the rake. Well, if we persist, we can get blisters. And if we do this for several days or a lot of days, we'll end up getting calluses on those spots. It's the same with walking. You can get a hot spot, and if you're not careful, that'll turn into a blister. If you do this over time, it'll turn into a callus. Those hardened, thickened layers of skin are your body's defense against pressure and friction. They are there intentionally to protect the parts of your body that are vulnerable, like your hands and your feet. They're like a suit of armor. In my previous video, Managing the Air When You Sing, I concluded the video by talking about vocal disorders over which we have little or no control, malformations or damage that has been done accidentally. Today, I want to talk about things we can control, the ways we overuse, abuse, or misuse the voice, why we do it, and what we can do about it. I don't think we talk about vocal health nearly enough, and it might be because our voices are fairly resilient. But I've noticed as I've gotten older that it takes a lot longer for me to recover than it did when I was in my 20s or my 30s. It used to be that I could sing all day, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, and do it all again. Now the recovery time is a lot longer. We can misuse our voices if we talk too long or too loudly, or too low in our range or too high in our range, and that will lead to vocal wear and tear. Vocal abuse is anything that causes damage to the vocal cords or vocal folds, including inhaling irritants, smoking, screaming, or yelling. It is not uncommon for singers to overuse their voices during rehearsals or performances, especially when they're singing in large groups or with large performing forces like an orchestra. And it's part of my job as a conductor to plan rehearsals and concerts that help safeguard against overusing the voice as much as I possibly can. But still, when I'm getting toward the end of a season and we're having multiple rehearsals in a week and we're having concerts, I will often hear singers complain of being vocally tired, and that is not a surprise. I can vividly recall back in 1997, my college choir was performing Beethoven's Missa Solemnis with the Charlotte Symphony Orchestra. It was a blast, over 120 singers singing with a full orchestra, and midway through the first rehearsal, about 45 minutes in, my voice felt like it was on fire. My throat hurt, I was having a hard time swallowing, I couldn't drink enough water, but I was having a great time. And when rehearsal resumed, being the young and foolish person I was, I did not let my vocal fatigue stop me, and I carried on. And by the end of the rehearsal, I had no voice at all. Now, when we strain or overuse our voice often sends us those signals, those pain signals. And although we can't see what's going on, our vocal folds or vocal cords are becoming red, irritated, and inflamed, just like those hot spots on our hands when we rake. If we persist and we sing past the pain, we can develop ulcers or lesions on our vocal folds. That's akin to getting blisters when you rake. And if you continue to persist with this type of singing over days and weeks, you can develop what are called vocal nodules or nodes. Or you can develop vocal polyps or vocal granuloma. This is like developing calluses on your vocal cords. The most obvious sign that someone is struggling with vocal nodes or polyps or granuloma is that their voice begins to sound airier, harsher, raspier, scratchier. There are athletic coaches I've heard interviewed on television who no doubt have vocal nodes. And when I hear them, my throat hurts. And why do they have them? Well, they're spending hours on end out on a field or on a court yelling to be heard during practices and games. Vocal nodes or polyps or granuloma are non-cancerous growths that grow on or around the vocal cords. And they can be very rough or they can be very smooth. They could be as small as a pinhead and as large as a pea. It seems like every few months or so we hear about another star who is taking a break from their career because they've developed vocal issues of some sort. This is usually a case where the singer has developed vocal nodes. Now, people will be quick to cast judgment. They'll say, that singer doesn't know what they're doing. They've got bad technique. They're belting too much. They're over singing. Well, all of that might be true, but it could be as simple as an issue of vocal overuse. These people are traveling and living on buses, singing 60 to 90 minutes worth of music 6 or 7 nights a week in multiple venues in front of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, and they're doing this for months at a time. I'm getting tired just thinking about it, and I know for sure that my voice could not handle that. We all know that vocal abuse, misuse, or overuse can lead to temporary voice loss, but they can also lead to permanent damage and permanent loss of vocal control. As singers, we need to have an awareness of how we're using our voice. In the past few months, when we've been embracing technology more than ever before, I've seen countless music videos, and in so many of them, the singers are using headphones or earbuds. And in several cases, I've seen professional world-class singers over-singing because they're trying to compete with the sound they're hearing in their ears from their headphones or earbuds. And why? Well, we tend to talk or sing about 10 decibels louder than the ambient sound, which is why singing in a car can be so bad for your voice. You're in the car, you're competing with the engine noise, you're competing with the road noise, and before too long, your voice feels tired. If you're anything like me, you probably clear your throat numerous times a day. It's innocent enough, it's natural enough, but it isn't great for the voice. It causes quite a bit of friction between the vocal folds. A speech therapist showed me a way to do this once, where you take a sip of water and then you huff out and try to move stuff around and then take another sip of water. Well, is not the best thing for the voice necessarily either, but it's a lot less friction than the act of clearing your throat. If you're looking to do your voice a favor, then in addition to good vocal technique, you can make sure you're doing 2 other things: drinking plenty of water and getting plenty of rest. We have all heard the phrase, the show must go on. And in some cases, that is the truth. I've had to sing through having sore throats because of allergies or the common cold. In my experience, singers will often forsake their own health so that they can sing. But you shouldn't sing if you have laryngitis or pharyngitis or the flu or if you have coronavirus. For many choirs, it's been an acceptable practice for singers who are mildly sick to come to rehearsal, keep their distance from others, sit in the back, mark their score, make notes, and hopefully get better before the next rehearsal. I think most choirs need to reevaluate that. I want to offer one word of warning. If you are singing with a sore throat, do not use sprays or lozenges that numb the mouth or throat. Those pain signals are telling you that something's not right. They're wanting you to stop using your voice. And if you numb yourself and keep on singing, you can hurt yourself. We've talked about vocal abuse. misuse and overuse, and we know that one form of overuse is over-singing, singing too loudly. And if as singers we know this is bad for us, why would we do it? Well, I can think of 4 reasons. First, there are people out there who are just very proud of their voice. And whether they are singing at a church, in a choir, or at a ball field, they want their voice to be heard. They want everyone around them to be in awe of their talent. Generally speaking, these people do not possess a voice I care to hear. The second reason people oversing is because they have too much energy and enthusiasm. This is like me singing Beethoven's Missa Solemnis. I was all in, and I was not really aware of what I was doing, or if I was aware, I was ignoring it. I oversang, and I lost my voice. The third reason is because people can't hear themselves. Now, in a choir, it can be challenging to hear yourself. As I mentioned when I talked about earbuds or singing in the car, we generally want to sing louder than the noise that surrounds us. But there's an added complication in singing in a choir. We want to make sure we're matching pitch, and sometimes to do that we start singing louder. Related to hearing yourself is hearing loss. As we get older, many people will lose their hearing, some more severely than others. And in my experience conducting choirs, people who begin losing their hearing start doing one of 3 things. Stop singing, or they begin singing very softly, or they start over-singing, singing much louder so they can hear themselves. The fourth reason people over-sing is because they are leaders. In every choir I've ever conducted over the entirety of my conducting career, every section has had a voice or 2 who function as leaders. They are the people that the section relies on to help them learn music and perform music. And there is often an unspoken expectation that that singer is going to lead the section. And part of that pressure for them is to sing loud enough for their people to hear them. Well, that is a form of over-singing, and those very leaders can be the very people who are clutching their throats when they leave rehearsal because they've been overusing their voice. For those who wish to increase the size of their voice, the answer isn't pushing yourself to sing louder necessarily, but to maximize the sound of your voice through maximizing resonance. I'm sure all of you have seen or heard a classically trained opera singer, and if you haven't, I'm including a link down below of a performance on PBS, live from Lincoln Center, recorded in 1997. The singers are John Fowler and Cassandra Riddle, who won an Emmy Award for their performance of La Boheme. John and Cassandra both happen to be graduates from Winthrop University, where I went to school, and the 3 of us all had the same voice teacher. Interestingly enough, Cassandra Riddle stopped in and sat in on a voice lesson I had when I was in grad school. And it made me a nervous wreck. I kept thinking about how I sat in my living room watching her sing on PBS. At some point, she began giving me tips on how to maximize my resonance. And at some point, she asked me, "Why do you sing?" And I didn't know the answer. I didn't know how to answer that. So I said, "I don't know. Why do you sing?" And she said, "Because I love feeling powerful." And if you listen to that recording, you'll hear that she is, in fact, a very powerful singer. Generally speaking, opera singers do not use sound reinforcement to amplify their voice, unlike people on Broadway who wear hidden microphones. Opera singers learn how to maximize the sound of their voice because they have to compete with an orchestra. And you may be wondering, how do they do that? Well, in truth, some of it relies on the acoustic properties of the performance hall, and also the fact that orchestras are usually down in a pit and there is some sound absorption that way, or they're back behind a scrim somewhere. But ultimately, these singers have to learn how to maximize their voice using their resonance. I want you to imagine an acoustic guitar. If you strum the strings of the guitar, brum, you hear this nice, warm, resonant tone. Now compare that with an electric guitar. If you strum those strings, it's tinny and thin. Pling. An electric guitar relies on an additional amplifier that takes the signal from the guitar, picks up the vibrations from the string, amplifies it, and projects it out. On the acoustic guitar, there's a box, a resonating chamber, where the sound bounces around and is amplified and then is heard by the listener. And it can be fairly loud. We have 3 resonating chambers in our body. The first is the most obvious. It is the mouth and the throat. The throat is where the sound is produced with the vocal cords, and the mouth forms a resonating chamber. And if you'll think back to videos I've done on posture, I've talked about the importance of having the soft palate lifted and the tongue on the bottom of the floor of the mouth. And the whole purpose of that is to create a resonating chamber for the sound. The next resonating chamber is the chest cavity. It functions a lot like that acoustic guitar. It's a space where that sound has area, where it can bounce around and be amplified. The third is the nasal cavity. This is where we get what we call ping or ring. It is the kind of focused sound that allows a professionally trained singer's voice to pierce through the sound of an orchestra. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and teach you about resonance, I found a great YouTube video that I'm going to share with you down below in the information section. I encourage you to watch it. This person who does the video does a wonderful job of talking about resonance and teaching you ways to explore that. I also found a wonderful slideshow that I'm sharing with you down below that covers a number of topics related to the voice. If you look at that, scroll down past the slides and you'll see that there is a comment for each of those slides, a further explanation. I encourage you to check out the resources I've listed down below in the information section and do yourself a favor. If you didn't watch that clip of John Fowler and Cassandra Riddle, do that. They are truly wonderful singers and wonderful people. From now on, if you find yourself abusing, misusing, or overusing your voice, I want you to stop. Go outside, pick up a rake, and remember the importance of vocal health. Please subscribe to this channel, and there's a bell in the upper corner. If you hit that bell, it will then begin alerting you each time I upload a new video. I hope all of these videos that I've been creating are useful and helpful and informative. Of course, I don't think this is a substitute for in-person lessons or rehearsals or concerts, but it is a way to stay engaged and connected. Until we can see each other in person, I am sending you my very, very best. Stay healthy and keep singing.